So this is Xi Jinping, December 31st, 2014.
同志们、朋友们、女士们、先生们，时间过得真快，2014年就要过去了，2015年呢，正在向我们走来。在这辞旧迎新的时刻，我向全国各族人民，向香港特别行政区同胞和澳门特别行政区同胞，向台湾同胞和海外侨胞，向世界各国和各地区的朋友们，致以新年的祝福。2014年是令人难忘的。这一年，我们锐意推进改革，啃下了不少硬骨头，出台了一系列重大改革举措。许多改革举措同老百姓的利益密切相关。我们适应经济发展新常态，积极推动经济社会发展，人民生活有了新的改善。12月12日，南水北调中线1期工程正式通水，沿线40多万移民搬迁，为这个工程做出了无私奉献。我们要向他们表示敬意，希望他们在新的家园生活幸福。这一年，我们着力的整风肃纪，重点反对形式主义、官僚主义、享乐主义和奢靡之风，情况有了很大的改观。我们加大反腐败斗争力度，以零容忍的态度严惩腐败分子，显示了反腐惩恶的坚定决心。这一年，我们加强同世界各国的合作交往，主办了北京亚太经合组织领导人非正式会议。我国领导人多次出访，外国领导人也大量的来访。这些活动让世界更好认识了中国。为了做好这些工作，我们的各级干部也是蛮拼的。当然，没有人民支持，这些工作是难以做好的。我要为我们伟大的人民点赞。这一年，我们通过了立法，确定了中国人民抗日战争胜利纪念日、烈士纪念日、南京大屠杀死难者国家公祭日，举行了隆重活动。对一切为国家、为民族、为和平付出宝贵生命的人们，不管时代怎样变化，我们都要永远铭记他们的牺牲和奉献。这一年，我们也经历了一些令人悲伤的时刻。马航 MH370 航班失踪，150多名同胞下落不明。我们没有忘记他们，我们一定要持续努力，想方设法找到他们。这一年， 我国发生了一些重大自然灾害和安全事故，不少同胞不幸离开了我们。云南鲁甸地震就造成了600多人遇难，我们怀念他们，祝愿他们的亲人们都安好。新年的钟声即将敲响，我们要继续努力，把人民的期待变成我们的行动，把人民的希望变成生活的现实。我们要继续全面深化改革，开弓没有回头箭，改革关头勇者胜。我们要全面推进依法治国，用法治保障人民权益，维护社会公平正义，促进国家发展。我们要让全面深化改革、全面推进依法治国如鸟之两翼、车之双轮，推动全面建成小康社会的目标如期实现。我国人民生活总体越来越好，但我们时刻都要想着那些生活中还有难处的群众。我们要满腔热情做好民生工作，特别是要做好扶贫开发和基本生活保障工作，让农村贫困人口、城市困难群众等所有需要帮助的人们都能生活得到保障，心灵充满温暖。我们要继续全面推进从严治党，毫不动摇转变作风，高举反腐的利剑，扎牢制度的笼子。在中国共产党领导的社会主义国家里，腐败分子发现一个就要查处一个，有腐必惩，有贪必肃。我们正在从事的事业是伟大的，坚忍不拔才能胜利，半途而废必将一事无成。我们的蓝图是宏伟的，我们的奋斗必将是艰巨的。全党全国各族人民要团结一心，集思广益，用好机遇，众志成城，应对挑战，力行力改，破解难题，奋发有为，进行创新，让国家发展和人民生活一年比一年好。中国人民关注自己国家的前途，也关注世界的前途。非洲发生了埃博拉疫情，我们给予帮助；马尔代夫首都遭遇断水，我们给予支援。许许多多这样的行动，展示了中国人民同世界人民同呼吸、共命运的情怀。当前世界仍很不安宁，我们呼唤和平。我真诚希望世界各国人民共同努力，让所有的人民免于饥寒的煎熬，让所有的家庭免于战火的威胁，让所有的孩子都能在和平的阳光下茁壮成长。谢谢大家。
So, according to Bill Jones, who's our according to Bill Jones, who does a lot of our translations, this the subtitles are better than this version. Okay. So you should trust that a little. It's a little bit more clear than what's in here.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's obvious that what we're dealing with. He says, "We long for peace and sincerely wish that global efforts will help relieve all people from hunger, all families from war, and ensure that all people grow in peace." I mean, that's Kennedy. That's Kennedy's inaugural address. But what I find interesting in this is that that concluding concept, and when he says that China shares a common destiny with all of humanity, is a concept that I think is best expressed by Nicholas of Cusa, and is really born into existence. It's born into existence in a way that it never had been before, in a way that changes the whole species in what Cusa did. So let me just pull up my Cusa slideshow, and I'm going to go through it kind of quick because I want to be done with it by like 12:45 or something. So this is going to be real quick. So I'm just going to give it kind of an overview, and then I can make it available to people. So you can take a look. Also, I can give you. I did this class before and recorded it, and so I can. Let's see, does it say? I can send people that link if you want to see more. Well, I mean, better yet, just read Cusa. But I do cover some interesting stuff in the things that I was able to do. Oh, wait, it's the other one. Okay. All right. So here's the. Just to set the stage, so this is a good place to start. See if I can make it bigger. All right. This is LaRouche. You want to bring it?
We must see ourselves as individuals, as potentially the embodiments of reason, as imago Dei. We must look into the faces of people around the world and see not different races or this or that distinction, but see in those faces, in those eyes, another human being who is also imago Dei, who has the potential within them, and seek to raise that potential within them, or to create the circumstances in which the ideas of doing good are presented more clearly to the individual, and in which the opportunities for doing that good are more freely provided. If we do that, we are participating in creation. We are of value to mankind as individuals, beyond all doubt. So again, in this best of all possible worlds, as Leibniz described it, let evil prompt us, not merely to deny evil, which we must do, we must denounce it as well as denying it. But let us be prompted by evil, as Schiller described the principle of tragedy. The tragedy of evil must be attacked, recognized, feared, and hated to such a degree that we are willing to do good, finally, to supplant the evil.
So, Cusa, his picture is on the wall behind the thing. Let me see if there's a picture in this one. How do I move this thing forward?
You want me to just take the picture off the wall?
Yeah. That's much better.
There we go.
Okay, yeah. There he is. And he was born in 1401, and he died in 1464. And he was a German, sort of, before there was such a thing, really. But, and, oh, here we go. I have to open it with Google Slides. And he became a cardinal in the Catholic Church, and he's the greatest mind of the Renaissance. And there's no doubt of that. Here we go. Okay. And I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time in Virginia, just completely able to just focus on Cusa. And I recommend that everyone do that as much as you can. We're basically within the 550th anniversary of his death. We're within the same anniversary year of his death, which was, I think, last August 10th, something like that. And what Cusa does to humanity as a scientist and as a thinker is to create the power of man to see himself as a creative species. Think about this. What is the university system? I'm going to get to this, but you see there's a difference between the two, which I'm going to come to. But what is Europe in 1400? What's going on in 1420, 1430? Now, Joan of Arc, I think, dies in 1431. I may be off 1 or 2 years, but something like that. And but what is Rome? What are you doing if you go to Rome? Rome is the seat of the Catholic Church. Well, I'm talking about the 1400s. But I mean, go back to ancient Rome. In ancient, and that's a good place to start, because you start from the standpoint of in 100 AD, there were 1 million people in Rome. It was a huge city. Today, there's only like 3 to 4 million in all of Rome, and that's probably, the borders are probably much broader than they were then. But there was 1 million people in Rome, and that's at the point in the population chart where it's the highest, which is not anyway, it's an important point, right? And then it crashes from that point onward. It crashes, and you have nothing but dark ages, basically. And that's a whole class in itself. That's a really interesting thing. In fact, I think if anyone really wants to study, like an economic study of the Roman Empire, there's a fantastic article, or I think it's very useful, by Ken Kronberg in the special report about the Hitler, the UN Hitler and Blue Helmets.
Oh, okay.
It's in the appendix. Very good. But by the time you get to 1430, which is around, if I remember correctly, I used to have this memorized, but it's around the time when Cusa first goes to Rome. He works his way up the church, in the church as an official. He works his way up in doing all these things. He decides he has to go to Rome and participate and fight for a Renaissance. And at the time that he goes into Rome, the population of Rome goes from 1 million in 100 AD. In 1430, it's like 25,000. Can you imagine? So, now, get this. The Colosseum seats as much as Yankee Stadium, I think. Something like that, or maybe half of that. I have to, okay, now I'm not saying something I'm totally sure, but I think that's more than the Colosseum seats. Or less than the Colosseum seats, if you see my point. I think that you could fit all of Rome in the Colosseum at that point. I have to check on that. But it's a relative, same magnitude, right? Same magnitude. I mean, Yankee Stadium seats at least 50,000, I think. So, anyway, Rome is ruins. It's just shit. It's just nothing but broken down everything. I mean, imagine living. It's like all of the science fiction today that's about post-apocalypse. It's like post-World War III, and everyone's walking around and everything's rubble. There's like zombies and stuff. It's like that. And it's against that. It's against that evil that the Renaissance is created, the Cusa is creates the world. So that should give you a great courage, because he was dealing with a situation of a magnitude that's almost impossible to consider. But what he was dealing with was those are the effects of the Dark Age. That's not the Dark Age. Well, that's not the darkness. The darkness is in the mind. The darkness is in the inability of society to progress and to act according to natural law, to the laws of the universe, to know the laws of the universe and then use them to the benefit of all mankind. Society was not capable of doing that because because of the oligarchy, and because people were not capable of defeating the oligarchy. So what was the whole think about how it works. As the Roman Empire comes apart, the Venetians come in, which is basically the leading families of Rome move up to Venice, and they embark on a new phase of empire, which is based on usurious loans to large nations and so forth, and Venetian treachery and creating wars like of course the Crusades. The Crusades are all basically Venetian traps, where they're playing the Christian West against the Muslim East, right? And at the time, like 1180, I think, Venice basically founds the first universities of Europe. And the first university is the University of Bologna, which is in the Venetian territory, I think. And what they're doing is they are teaching basically Roman imperial law is a major area of study, and the other one is Aristotle. When it comes down to it, I mean, there's lots of categories in between and so forth, but it's law. It's the law of the Roman system, and it's the Aristotelian philosophy, natural philosophy, so forth, everything about it. This philosophy and the Roman law system is based on an oligarchical principle. It's based on an idea that man is a beast, and that should be treated as such. So the laws are set up that way. The law that, and I won't go into it since we have such a little bit of time. But every university in Europe is teaching this shit. Every single one of them. And I'm going to go through some Aristotle quotes in here where you get a sense of how evil it is. And Cusa is part of a group of people who say this must not be, and who restore the teachings of Plato. They restore the teachings of the great church fathers, Augustine and so forth, and many other people. But like people think of the Renaissance. Helga mentioned yesterday about how it was part of it was finding the old Greek texts that had been lost. The Venetians knew how to do this kind of thing. Their whole system of universities was based on translating Aristotle into Latin, which was the academic language. Right? So they had their own translation project massively, starting in about again like in the 1100s. So it was they got a 300-year head start, because the real Platonic translations of what we just read didn't really come about until the 1400s. But Cusa is part of that network. There's a lot of really fun stuff to go through on this, but I'm going to go to the basic point, which is that when we talk about Imago Dei, Cusa is absolutely critical in defining what does it mean and what are the implications. And it is the idea that man is a creator. So here you have, this is Brunelleschi, and this is Donatello. And you notice a difference between the two. They were great friends, and Donatello was a fantastic sculptor, of course, but they had a discussion about this, in a sense. Donatello carved this. And Brunelleschi, they're in Florence. This is, I don't know exactly the year on it. But it's in the early 1400s. They are carving this, and Cusa sees, not Cusa, excuse me, Brunelleschi sees Donatello's carving, and he says, you've put, I think he uses the word like a peasant or a plowman. You put a plowman on the cross. And then he does this one. And I think that if you really consider the difference and you just take it in for a minute, you can see how much more human Christ is in this.
He's like very emaciated. He's not. That's really sculpted, muscular. Brunelleschi's is.
It kind of looks like the one on the left is what he saw. That's it.
How do you mean, what, who saw?
The artist.
Brunelleschi, yeah.
Yeah, Brunelleschi.
I think it's worth considering what's being depicted. It's a crucifixion. So consider the physical, situation. He's being held up by this and by these. And so all of his weight is on that, or much of his weight.
He has everyone seems suspended. The head.
What do you mean?
Well, the one on the right, the Donatello one.
Yeah.
It seems to be floating, kind of.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah, his weight doesn't seem to be on his feet. It doesn't seem to be more like around the chest.
You see the pulling, the strained tendons and stuff in the left.
It's also interesting he decided to do him naked.
Yeah, there's like no censorship with the one on the left.
Right.
Versus the one on the right. It seems a little more censored with everything they just said, plus that thing he's got around his waist.
It seems like you would be sort of like protected from from the vulnerability of Christ or something by seeing him like
Well,
that.
the one on the left's a little bit censored too. There's something isn't there.
It's true.
The one on the left also has his the thorn crown.
Mm-hmm.
Crown thorn.
Anyway, it's just something. It's something to consider. Donatello and Brunelleschi certainly thought there was a difference. I think it's not something that The idea is not to be sort of like an art critic or something, but to try to put yourself in the intention of the piece, because it has an extremely profound impact on your idea of government, on your idea of economy, on your idea of philosophy, of everything. Is what you can imagine in the context of 1400s, the significance of these images, of this image, in terms of defining what does it mean to be human. What is the aspiration? Where are we going? What are we tending towards? And I would, one way of putting it would be, this again, the kind of idea this is floating, this seems to be artificial compared to this one. And there's something where you have to put yourself in the mind of Christ, and you have to become Christ-like if you truly consider this artwork.
I don't know, I can't really tell, but the one on the right doesn't look like his hands are bleeding also. So.
There's many different details, but it's the concept that.
But like one's more human and one is not. Yeah.
That's. So that's something to consider. Oh, sorry. Let me go back.
One seems a little bit more on anesthesia, sort of.
Well, from that angle, the one on the right looks like he's suffering.
Can you do this? Just hit the space bar.
Well, he's more present on the left. Like it seems like his conscious, like he's more intellectual.
Peace.
I wouldn't say intellectually present, but he's more.
So he looks like he's praying or something. And on the right, he looks like he's suffering.
He's thinking with more grace.
You want to hit it? So this is what Cusa is bringing to life. Keep going. Okay, we'll read this. But this is the mindset that an average person is in, who's living in the Dark Ages, or the sort of this period, which is Dark Ages and yet also Renaissance and potential at the same time, which is like exactly what we're dealing with right now, where you're on, like Helga puts it, you're somehow between heaven and hell at the same moment. This is the mindset of a person who's in that. This is a precursor to Cusa by about 200 years. His name is Saint Anselm, and this is a famous thing he did called Proslogion, which is his most famous work. And just listen. I'll read through. It's this and then one more set of this. Arousal of the mind for contemplating God. Come now, insignificant man. Leave behind for a time your preoccupations. Seclude yourself for a while from your disquieting thoughts. Turn aside now from heavy cares and set aside your wearisome tasks. Make time for God and rest a while in Him. Enter into the inner chamber of your mind. Shut out everything except God and what is of aid to you in seeking Him. After closing the chamber door, seek Him out. Speak now, my whole heart. Speak now to God. I seek your countenance. Your countenance, O Lord, do I seek. So come now, Lord my God, teach my heart where and how to seek you, where and how to find you. If you are not here, O Lord, where shall I seek you who are absent? But if you are everywhere, why do I not behold you as present? But surely you dwell in light inaccessible. Yet where is light inaccessible? Or how shall I approach unto light inaccessible? Or who will lead me to and into this light so that in it I may behold you? Furthermore, by what signs, by what facial appearance shall I seek you? Never have I seen you, O Lord my God. I'm not acquainted with your face. What shall this your distant exile do? What shall he do, O most exalted Lord? What shall your servant do, anguished out of love for you and cast far away from your face? He pants to see you, but your face is too far removed from him. He desires to approach you, but your dwelling place is inaccessible. He desires to find you, but does not know your abode. He longs to seek you, but does not know your countenance. O Lord, you are my God, and you are my Lord, yet never have I seen you. You have created me, and created me anew, and have bestowed upon me whatever goods I have. But I am not yet acquainted with you. Indeed, I was made for seeing you, but not yet have I done that for which I was made.
What did he mean by inaccessible light?
I would look at it from this perspective. Aristotelian concept of knowledge is sense perception. You're going to see that in the rest of the presentation here. Everywhere across Europe, they're teaching you that the way that you know truth is by touching it. The way that you know truth is through your senses, and that's your access point for everything, But you can't see God as much as you want to. He wants to. You can't see and everything that represents in terms of a future, of the good of mankind, of society, of everything. You can't see it. You can't sense truth. Truth is not something that you can access like that. I won't speak more. I'll just let it. Why don't we go on? Here's Cusa describing exactly that dynamic. Nowadays, the Aristotelian tendency dominates, which finds the coincidence of opposites, which one has to acknowledge to find the ascent towards mystical theology to be a heresy. To those trained in this school, this approach seems to be totally nonsensical. They refuse it as something completely opposite to their intentions. Therefore, it would be close to a miracle, as well as it would be a complete transformation of the school if they were to abandon Aristotle and reach a higher level. The key concept that Cusa puts forward that is a development from the Socratic method is the coincidence of opposites. He refers to it as a method of learned ignorance. We're not going to be able to really go into it in depth, but this is the work that LaRouche is always referring to, On Learned Ignorance, De Docta Ignorantia, by Cusa. It's a means of finding that inaccessible truth. You do it through metaphor, you do it through paradox, you do it by unifying seemingly opposite concepts into something higher, that is their cause, that is their invisible cause. Okay, we can keep going. Here's Aristotle's idea of how to know truth. This is from a book that is hilariously titled Posterior Analytics. We have already said that scientific knowledge through demonstration is impossible unless a man know the primary immediate premises. How does man know? We must possess a capacity of some sort, which is at least an obvious characteristic of all animals, for they possess a congenital discriminative capacity, which is called sense perception. So our sense perception comes to be what we call memory, and out of frequently repeated memories of the same things develops experience. For a number of memories constitute a single experience. From experience, again, originates the skill of the craftsman and the knowledge of the man of science. Do people have a sense of what he means?
Like empirical observations, like you have to witness it or hear it or like feel it to really, in his case, saying to understand it. So it's like, but I mean, I've studied other like ethics books, and like they tend to say empirical observations aren't like the best because they're subjective, and well, you know, when it's something subjective, your empirical observation is just there for the minute, but then afterwards it's kind of like you don't know because a bunch of other data will tell you something differently otherwise. I don't know how to...
No, that's good, but I would point out to you that he's not... What you might have encountered is, okay, here's various methods for seeking truth, or for finding knowledge. What Aristotle is saying is that the one source of knowledge is sense perception. And that's it. So how could you know the face of God if this is what you thought? But what he's saying is that God is unknowable. Which brings you back to the Donatello and the Brunelleschi, because if God is unknowable, then he's going to be forever at a distance. And you're never going to be able to participate or put yourself in the mind of Christ, in the mind of someone who acts in a divine way. There's more to pull out of it, but... Here's further evil Aristotle. Who again was, it's when Matt was going through the political situation in Plato's time, in Socrates' time, and that the Meno dialogue is an incredible political intervention. Because Meno is an oligarch. He's an oligarch, and this is an attempt to transform this. Aristotle was a political deployment by the Persian Empire, essentially, to defeat the intentions of Plato and Socrates. Aristotle was put in there intentionally. It was all bullshit from the beginning. Don't give him any fucking, any credence. It was a a tool of the empire to attempt to destroy Athens. And it works. This is from De Anima, On the Soul. Since according to common agreement there is nothing outside and separate in existence from sensible spatial magnitudes, the objects of thought are all in sensible forms, both abstract objects and all the states and affections of sensible things. Hence, no one can learn or understand anything in the absence of senses. And when the mind is actively aware of anything, it is necessarily aware of it along with an image, for images are like sensuous contents. While in respect of all the other senses, this is really funny, while in respect of all the other senses we fall below many species of animals, in respect to touch we far excel all other species in exactness of discrimination. That is why man is the most intelligent of animals. I think it's just he must have been a real pervert. You know? So this is what defines mankind as different from the animals, according to him, is that we have better sense of touch. I mean, it's just an absurdity. It's just so ridiculously stupid. And you know, you think about Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes did not touch the globe all over to know how big it was. You use the mind to set up within your own mind. You take these concepts and you find the paradoxes. Why was it that the shadow in Cairo were the two locations, Cairo and Alexandria?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why is it the shadow in Cairo is different from the shadow in Alexandria? People know what I'm referring to? Okay, so Eratosthenes, I don't know the date. I'm not an expert on Eratosthenes. Do you want to say anything about it? Okay. Well, the point is this: that in essentially this period of Plato and Socrates, Eratosthenes did an extremely accurate study of the circumference of the globe, and he did it because he noticed that if you look into a well in Cairo, when the sun is immediately above, and you look at a well in Alexandria when the sun... Oh, excuse me.
Because it's Alexandria and Aswan.
Ah, thank you.
You're doing it like
of
Cairo
course.
and Alexandria like this.
Good. Do you want to... Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, at a certain day in the year, which I will tell you, the shadow, there's a certain angle which is produced where I think it's in Aswan that you have no shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and in Alexandria you have a certain amount of shadow which is created at a certain time of the day.
Same time,
where
same day.
The sun is the highest. Now you can't be at the same place, at the two places at the same time.
But you can judge it on the basis.
You have to do it on the long. It's a
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, you have to do it over years.
How long a year is.
Yeah. But so if you see the point, the sun's rays come in parallel, but when they because of the curvature of the Earth, they're going to hit the bottom of the well at the different wells at slightly different angles, or the bottom of the well is going to be at a slightly different angle, depending on where you are on the Earth. So he noticed the difference in the shadows, and through that process he discovered a method of judging the distance between the two, and eventually and in that process defined how big the entire world was. And he was extremely close.
The distance between those two places.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, for knowing the distance exactly between the two places. Excuse me. So, but anyway, and then it turns out later that he's like almost there, really close. So Aristotle is putting out propaganda saying, don't even try that. You can never know anything without your senses, without your sense of touch. Don't even try it. Don't do it. It's.
He's just painted himself in the corner with that, because how does he introduce that concept?
Right.
He can't do it by reason or anything
Yeah.
like that, 'cause that doesn't exist. So he just says, since according to common agreement,
Yeah.
Okay.
According to popular opinion.
What could he say? According to the way the mind operates, whoops,
Right.
nope.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you perceive the concept that everything is a perception? You don't. So that's why he has to phrase it that way.
I just want to go through like two more things because the point is to get to Cusa, and then see what people think. Can you keep going? I don't remember exactly what's in this thing. Keep going. This is one more a really important thing from Aristotle, just to give you a sense of exactly what it is from politics. The slave is a living possession and property, an instrument. The master is only the master of the slave. He does not belong to him. Whereas the slave is not only the slave of his master, but wholly belongs to him. For that some should rule and others should be ruled is a thing not only of necessity, but expedient. It's not only that it has to be that way, but I like it. From the hour of their birth, some are marked out for subjugation, others for rule. Then ought the good to rule and have supreme power? Should the best man rule? No. The principle to be maintained is that the multitude ought to be supreme rather than the few best. For the plurality of whom each individual is but an ordinary person, when they meet together, may very likely be better than the few good, if regarded not individually but collectively. For some understand one part, and some another, and among them they understand the whole.
I think the idea that the whole is just the sum of these parts, localized specialists or opinions that just add together to get a whole.
Yeah, this is a Confederate idea.
Yeah.
I mean, that people. What do you see what Matthew's saying? That you want to say more?
Yeah, sure. I mean, because you either have these two competing ideas of a whole, like of a nation, of either being the sum total of all of the parts, or like your body, right? You have the idea of your body as being the sum total of all of the atoms that make you up. Or you got the opposing idea of the whole as being identified as more than simply the sum total of adding all of the parts together. So if you just consider a nation as being the sum total of all of the opinions of the collective, do you really get the character of the nation as a whole, or is there something else about it which is not present in just adding things up?
That was Lyndon LaRouche's whole point yesterday in the opening, if you remember. It's gonna be posted on the website immediately, I'm sure, but the text of it. He said, our time has come to realize that there are no local states. There are states which have we have created under our Constitution with the help of our Constitution, but the creation was the creation of a single state, the United States so-called, and at the center of that has been Manhattan. And he goes on to develop it, but he says, he makes the point that Matthew's making, that a union is something that is higher than the sum of its parts. Whereas Aristotle is demanding that the opposite is different. And that's the basis by which he says that the rule of popular opinion should be the rule of all governments. And the rule of popular opinion is the rule of sense perception. And the rule of sense perception, by the way, it's also slavery. Because clearly, if a slave is a slave, then the slave is a slave. I mean, that's the limit of Aristotle's reasoning. You think about Meno. Meno's looking at the slave boy and he's thinking, yeah, he's a slave. Remember that even after, well, you'll find out in the last 7 pages. I mean, if I remember correctly, Meno doesn't change. All right, he doesn't say, oh, thank goodness, you're right. He's and then free the slaves. The end of I'm giving it away. The end is not that Meno decides to free all the slaves, but because he thinks this way. And Aristotle, I mean, the thing about Plato was doing is taking Aristotle's conceptions, which are not exactly Aristotle's at the time, personally, but in a sense they are. Anyway, he's taking those oligarchical ideas. And he's presenting them, and he's presenting how you can destroy, how the mind actually exposes how fraudulent these things are. But then Aristotle succeeded, the oligarchy succeeds in keeping mankind in the dark up until the 1400s. It's 1700 years of Aristotle being the dominant. Now, it's not the only, because you have the forces of good. You have people who the obvious, one obvious person in terms of this European system is Christ. Right? Christ somehow defeats the Roman Empire. In that the effect of what he does in creating, the religion, a group of people, a method of thinking that says that your life is not your waking days, but that your life is something that's immortal. That is the power that allows you to defeat empire. And there's more on that, but anyway, the critical thing to do is to, you can keep going. This is all really fun, but I'm not going to go through it now, because it'd be more fun to do Cusa. I want to see what else there is. Okay, so this is a good thing to focus on. So, like his predecessor Saint Anselm, Cusa's great work De Docta is concerned. The first book is concerned with what is God. What is God? And how do you think about God? What is the nature of God? What's the nature of the absolute maximum is the word he gives for God. That than which there can be nothing bigger is the way that St. Anselm talks about it. But nothing greater. But Cusa actually develops a higher way of talking about it. Because it's so difficult. You can't say... You'll find out. Let's just read this. Would you mind reading?
Sure. Since I'm going to discuss the maximum learning of ignorance, I must deal with the nature of maximality. Now, I give the name maximum to that than which there cannot be anything greater. But fullness befits what is one. Thus, oneness, which is also being, coincides with maximality. But if such oneness is altogether free from all relation and contraction, obviously nothing is opposed to it, since it is absolute maximality. Thus, the maximum is the absolute one, which is all things. And all things are in the maximum, for it is the maximum. And since nothing is opposed to it, the minimum likewise coincides with it. And hence the maximum is also in all things. And because it is absolute, it is actually every possible being. It contracts nothing from things, all of which derive from it. In the first book, I shall strive to investigate incomprehensibly above human reason this maximum, which the faith of all nations indubitably believes to be God. I shall investigate with the guidance of him who alone dwells in inaccessible light.
So this has a lot in it, but again, if you think about, if you can say with Plato, as Plato demonstrates that the Aristotelian way of looking at the world is clearly bullshit, you still have to come up with a positive method of investigating those things which you cannot investigate with your senses, which is to say all truth. And Plato doesn't really create that method, Cusa does. And it's called the method of learned ignorance, by which he means basically, begin from the idea that you're never gonna, your mind is finite and the truth is infinite. So you will never hold truth in your mind. You're never going to totally apprehend infinite truth. That's because of the nature of the universe and the nature of your own soul and mind, or however you put it. But you can have an increasingly perfect knowledge even though it will never be perfect, it'll never be, you'll never know it. You'll know more and more what you don't know. You can know more and more what you don't know about the truth. And the way to do this is completely the opposite of what Aristotle is talking about. If you go back to the syllogisms, go back one more. Yeah. Aristotle says all knowledge given or received by way of argument proceeds from pre-existing knowledge. There's nothing new in the world, he says, in terms of knowledge. The mathematical sciences and all other speculative disciplines are acquired in this way, and so are the two forms of dialectical reasoning, syllogistic and inductive. For each of these latter makes use of old knowledge to impart new. The syllogism, by assuming an audience that accepts its premises, induction, by exhibiting the universal as implicit in the clearly known particular. Again, the persuasion exerted by rhetorical arguments is in principle the same. Go to the next slide to show what he means by that. This is basically Aristotle's method of investigation. It's just sophistry. It's just lies. You see people do this all the time. People have probably heard of this, a syllogism. You start with a major premise. All A is B. You go to a minor premise. All C is B, and then you have a conclusion that says, okay, well then therefore, all C is A. Okay, so the example is this. All Greeks are mortal. Socrates is Greek. Therefore, Socrates is immortal. And this is considered one of the two major modes of investigation, along with induction. This is syllogism by Aristotle. The idea is that this middle term is the cause that accounts for the conclusion. So you can say anything you want, as long as it's in that format. All birds fly, hawks are birds, therefore hawks fly. Why? So then you would ask Aristotle, why do hawks fly? Because they're birds.
I like the flightless birds, though.
Yeah, well, sure. But the point is that that's not like, let me see. Do we have other examples?
That's not a satisfactory reason why.
Yeah, exactly. Why that and not other?
It's a bit circular.
We got to come up with some good examples of this. I feel like I had some written down, but I lost them. They're really good. You can say anything you want.
Because the premises could be wrong.
Yeah. Thank you. Right.
Yeah. I mean, all birds fly is not right.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could, if you accepted that major premise, all birds fly, ostriches are birds, ostriches fly.
It's an idea of like knowledge comes from facts, knowledge comes from sense perception, from agreements.
Well, and then logic.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we figure out new things by combining previous thoughts. And then it comes from a way of, it ends up coming down to like a way of writing things on paper or words instead of any real concept or,
So compare that to what Cusa is saying. You hit it one more. Which is that you take two things that are opposite, in this case the maximum and the minimum. I realize this is, you gotta go and read it. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. But you take two things that are opposite, and in Plato, in Aristotle's system, they're just opposite, and that's the end of it. And that's just what the truth is. In Cusa's system, which is the system of all modern science that comes afterwards, it's a question of the coincidence. Two opposites are united in their single cause, for example. And that cause is necessarily invisible and impossible to apprehend with the senses. So that's a taste of what Cusa does. It's more Aristotle than Cusa, but nevertheless, you get the point. Anyway, what do people think?
So it's interesting, like the Cusa stuff, because I remember when I was in high school, they taught me my teacher was really cool. She taught me the classical English literature, poetry, and things like that. And one of them, I think, was like an example of the Byronic hero and sort of things like that dealt with opposites. And one of the poems I remember the most was the lamb and the tiger. I think that's what it was. And the poet himself always like focused on the coincidence of the opposites. Like the tiger is the natural predator of the lamb. The lamb is defenseless. The lamb is peaceful, but the tiger is the one that controls sort of like the rest of the layout of the environment, whatever. But the tiger is also the strength, the one that will like do what it has to do and sort of like shepherd the rest of the lamb and all that stuff. But like it's funny because those are completely different times of Cusa and of like classical literature, when like Shakespeare was around and Shelley and like those type of people. And then even Helga was talking about that yesterday real quick to answer someone's question. She was saying like we don't focus too much on the culture aspect and like how culture has to be revived into sort of like a dynamic to show that it's like people are learning new things. And I just think it's interesting that Cusa's from such a like early time he was already demonstrating this coincidence as opposites, and then you see it again when the English literature came out during like the industrial era and all that stuff, when it was like a propagation of the standards of living and all that stuff, you know. So it's pretty cool.
Shelley ends one of his major works stating that poets are the unacknowledged legislators of mankind. And he doesn't just mean lawmakers as in a city with laws, but they make the rules, the real rules by which mankind actually thrives. Poets.
You know, can you hit it one more? Can you bring me to the door paintings? Yeah. The effect on culture is immediate and obvious of this way of thinking. Because again, to like bring it back to Donatello and Brunelleschi, because it was a little bit hard to put this all together in one shot. But if you have a method of seeking God, truth, of seeking a higher hypothesis, the higher hypothesis, then you're discovering a method of participating in creation. You're discovering a method of participating in the work of creation. You identify that the mind of an individual, the human mind, is a reflection of the divine mind, and that's what gives you the power to investigate truth. And the art that comes out of the Renaissance period reflects that idea. That it's not... Aristotle would put the oligarchy in charge of truth. And Cusa says, no, it's in every human mind. This is the earliest... No, it's the self-portrait... the earliest... how do I put it? It's the youngest self-portrait that we have. That is... Yeah, it's the youngest self-portrait that we have of the European tradition, as I understand it. This is Dürer at age 13, drawing himself. And he lives, I think, in Nuremberg. And he comes immediately after Cusa. And then if you go again, and again, this is his famous self-portrait when he is... I think he's 28. And he has himself... Well, I mean, what do people think? Do you know? I mean, what do you notice about it? Particularly about how he's presenting himself. What was it?
Like Christ.
Why do you say that? Big up.
That little hand thing that he does on.
Cryptic hand gesture.
And the hair.
What do you think? Yeah, like kind of like.
It's
pointing up.
It's pointing up as much as more to his heart and to his chest.
To himself.
It's like I have Jesus in me. Because like he's saying, he's painting it to look like Jesus, but he's also saying something about his relationship to Jesus, I think.
In fact, I think it's the case that this style of portrait, which is the flat, straight-on perspective, up until this period is used exclusively for paintings of Christ and other religious figures. Divine figures, I mean. So this is like remarkably provocative, and it's still provocative today for people to think like that you're comparing yourself to Christ. People, depending on sort of your religious background, you might say to yourself, well, that's completely, that's like, whoa, yeah, blasphemous, yeah, like totally, etc.
People do that every day. People do that every day, like compare themselves to Jesus. Or like,
I mean, truthfully. Certainly, people, I mean, and some, some people do. Xi Jinping gave a speech in 2013 in Africa where he said, we will never do to Africa what the Western colonialists have done to Africa. And he said, we know that it is better to teach a man to fish than to give him fish directly. So the head of the Communist Party of China quoted Christ in defining his economic policy, and then he followed through. Huh?
That's a quote from Christ?
Yeah, the idea, better to teach a man to fish. So anyway, I think it's a good place to end. So this is Xi Jinping, December 31st, 2014.
同志们、朋友们、女士们、先生们，时间过得真快，2014年就要过去了，2015年呢，正在向我们走来。在这辞旧迎新的时刻，我向全国各族人民，向香港特别行政区同胞和澳门特别行政区同胞，向台湾同胞和海外侨胞，向世界各国和各地区的朋友们，致以新年的祝福。2014年是令人难忘的。这一年，我们锐意推进改革，啃下了不少硬骨头，出台了一系列重大改革举措。许多改革举措同老百姓的利益密切相关。我们适应经济发展新常态，积极推动经济社会发展，人民生活有了新的改善。12月12日，南水北调中线1期工程正式通水，沿线40多万移民搬迁，为这个工程做出了无私奉献。我们要向他们表示敬意，希望他们在新的家园生活幸福。这一年，我们着力的整风肃纪，重点反对形式主义、官僚主义、享乐主义和奢靡之风。 情况有了很大的改观。我们加大反腐败斗争力度，祝愿他们的亲人们都安好。新年的钟声即将敲响，我们要继续努力，把人民的期待变成我们的行动，把人民的希望变成生活的现实。我们要继续全面深化改革，开弓没有回头箭，改革关头勇者胜。我们要全面推进依法治国，用法治保障人民权益，维护社会公平正义，促进国家发展。我们要让全面深化改革、全面推进依法治国如鸟之两翼、车之双轮，推动全面建成小康社会的目标如期实现。我国人民生活总体越来越好，但我们时刻都要想着那些生活中还有难处的群众。我们要满腔热情做好民生工作，特别是要做好扶贫开发和基本生活保障工作，让农村贫困人口、城市困难群众等所有需要帮助的人们都能生活得到保障，心灵充满温暖。我们要继续全面推进从严治党，毫不动摇转变作风，高举反腐的利剑，扎牢制度的笼子。在中国共产党领导的社会主义国家里，腐败分子发现一个就要查处一个，有腐必惩，有贪必肃。我们正在从事的事业是伟大的，坚忍不拔才能胜利，半途而废必将一事无成。我们的蓝图是宏伟的，我们的奋斗必将是艰巨的。零容忍的态度严惩腐败分子，显示了反腐惩恶的坚定决心。这一年，我们加强同世界各国的合作交往，主办了北京亚太经合组织领导人非正式会议。我国领导人多次出访，外国领导人也大量的来访。这些活动让世界更好认识了中国。为了做好这些工作，我们的各级干部也是蛮拼的。当然，没有人民支持，这些工作是难以做好的。我要为我们伟大的人民点赞。这一年，我们通过了立法，确定了中国人民抗日战争胜利纪念日、烈士纪念日、南京大屠杀死难者国家公祭日，举行了隆重活动。对一切为国家、为民族、为和平付出宝贵生命的人们，不管时代怎样变化，我们都要永远铭记他们的牺牲和奉献。这一年，我们也经历了一些令人悲伤的时刻。马航 MH370 航班失踪，150多名同胞下落不明。我们没有忘记他们， 我们一定要持续努力，想方设法找到他们。这一年，我国发生了一些重大自然灾害和安全事故，不少同胞不幸离开了我们。云南鲁甸地震就造成了600多人遇难，我们怀念他们。
That concluding concept, and when he says that China shares a common destiny with all of humanity, is a concept that I think is best expressed by Nicholas of Cusa, and is really born into existence. It's born into existence in a way that it never had been before, in a way that changes all of the whole species in what Cusa did. So let me just pull up my Cusa slideshow, and I'm going to go through it kind of quick because I want to be done with it by like 12:45 or something. So this is going to be real quick. So I'm just going to give it kind of an overview, and then I can make it available to people. So you can take a look. Also, I can give you. I did this class before and recorded it, and so I can. Let's see, does it say? I can send people that link if you want to see more. Well, I mean, better yet, just read Cusa. But I do cover some interesting stuff in the things that I was able to do. Oh, yeah, it's the other one. Okay. All right. So here's the. Just to set the stage, so this is a good place to start. See if I can make it bigger. All right. This is LaRouche. You want to bring it?
We must see ourselves as individuals, as potentially the embodiments of reason, as imago Dei. We must look into the faces of people around the world and see not different races or this or that distinction, but see in those faces, in those eyes, another human being who is also imago Dei, who has the potential within them, and seek to raise that potential within them, or to create the circumstances in which the ideas of doing.
全党全国各族人民要团结一心，集思广益，用好机遇，众志成城，应对挑战，力行力改，破解难题，奋发有为，进行创新，让国家发展和人民生活一年比一年好。中国人民关注自己国家的前途，也关注世界的前途。非洲发生了埃博拉疫情，我们给予帮助；马尔代夫首都遭遇断水，我们给予支援。许许多多这样的行动，展示了中国人民同世界人民同呼吸、共命运的情怀。当前世界仍很不安宁，我们呼唤和平。我真诚希望世界各国人民共同努力，让所有的人民免于饥寒的煎熬，让所有的家庭免于战火的威胁，让所有的孩子都能在和平的阳光下茁壮成长。谢谢大家。
So, according to Bill Jones, who's our according to Bill Jones, who does a lot of our translations, this the subtitles are better than this version. Okay. So you should trust that a little. It's a little bit more clear than what's in here. But I mean, it's obvious that what we're dealing with. He says, "We long for peace and sincerely wish that global efforts will help relieve all people from hunger, all families from war, and ensure that all people go in peace." I mean, that's Kennedy. That's Kennedy's inaugural address. But what I find interesting in this is that the